Consequentialism, The Parable of the Sadhu. Presentation by Andrew Rapp, Robert Castro, and Colleen Reese. What is consequentialism? Consequentialism is a type of normative ethical theory used in the moral decision-making of whether something is right or wrong by determining what consequences that decision creates. To keep it simple, actions are based on consequences. Those actions are only considered right if the outcome is good. And they're value-based, dependent on several factors, which motivators of each action are unique to the individual based on their set of personal values. And we'll give you two examples. One, utilitarianism, which focuses on the well-being of the group. The other, hedonism, which focuses on the well-being of the self.
Pop quiz, hotshot. Terrorist holding a police hostage. He's got enough dynamite strapped to his chest to blow a building in half. Now what do? There's gonna be 50 cops waiting for you in the basement.
Here's a little quiz for those of you who have seen the movie. What did Jack do in that situation? What happened after that scene? Why did he do it? What were some of his motivators? Did he have alternatives? And if so, what were they? We'll give you a little hint. Utilitarianism evaluates consequences by a greatest good for the greatest number. For those of you that haven't seen the movie, the answer, he shot the hostage. This maximized the outcome for everyone involved. He couldn't have shot the bad guy, or the bomb would have been detonated, killing everyone surrounding the building. He chose to shoot the hostage, who happens to be his partner and his friend, to prevent the bad guy from actually taking him hostage. He saved his life. Although not the most ideal choice to shoot your friend, the outcome was a positive one. He was even awarded a medal of recommendation for his actions.
I don't care.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I really wouldn't.
So long as it's gum, then that's for me.
All right, now don't you do anything stupid.
What's it taste like? It's tomato soup. It's hot and creamy. I can actually feel it running down my throat.
Hedonism, on the other hand, focuses on the self. The idea is to maximize one's own pleasure and happiness at any and all costs. We can see Violet's disregard for the rules was aimed to maximize her pleasure-happiness, which was getting that gum. Consequentialism justifies that disregard because she is seeking happiness for herself. Her initial thoughts about the gum were that it was completely harmless, free from negative consequences. The Parable of the Sadhu and Consequentialism. Who was responsible for the Sadhu? The entire group of hikers claim responsibility for the Sadhu, which in fact they did. However, individually, their actions were separate. Their motivators were completely unique from one another so as to perform different levels of actions, which then affected the Sadhu differently. The group displayed the example of utilitarianism. They felt everyone would be put at risk if they stopped to help the Sadhu. They did what they could and moved on even though the Sadhu's life remained at risk. This is similar to the trolley story in that a choice between life and death must be made for one person or for several people. Everyone can't be saved, so both situations focus on the best outcome for the greatest number. What are the actions of the consequentialists in the parable of Sadhu? As we just mentioned, the group wanted to produce the best outcome for the greater good, so they chose minimal treatment for the Sadhu and continued on their journey, despite the possible negative consequences for the Sadhu. The author did hint at hedonistic tendencies when he thought about his once-in-a-lifetime adventure getting cut short in order to treat the Sadhu. Had his actions been to completely ignore the Sadhu in favor of completing the summit hike, he would have been seeking to maximize his own happiness, therefore exemplifying the theory of hedonism. Changing the circumstances. Would the treatment of the Sadhu have been different if they were a woman? Maybe. Individuals are influenced by certain factors. Each individual was motivated by circumstances, which are impulses that rationalize their reasons to act. Under the assumption of approaching the situation as a consequentialist, the individual would weigh the pros and cons of the actions and then apply them to their own set of moral principles to act. What have we learned? The benefits of consequentialism include flexibility. The theory can be applied to many different types of situations. Consequentialists are motivated by their values, meaning their actions are based on what is moral and good for the group and for the self. The flaws in the theory are decisions can be time-consuming. It might take longer to act because the agent has to decipher what the best outcome actually is, which isn't always clear. And those outcomes might not even happen according to plan. Participant limitations suggest the agent is limited in his actions because of his values and moral standards. For example, killing one to save many might be the best case scenario, but that individual will be unable to kill anyone due to their personal ethical beliefs. This creates subjectivity because these standards are inconsistent across cultures and various other groups. What is our responsibility if we aim to be ethical individuals? From an organizational standpoint, we have ethical duties to our business, its shareholders, our consumers, the community, and to the environment. From a general perspective, most of those overlap, but we include an ethical responsibility to ourselves. It's clear there is some relationship between business ethics and personal ethics, but how we reach that intersection and navigate conflicts depends on the actions of the group as well as individuals. We should continue to educate ourselves as well as each other to reach a universal understanding of what is right and what is good, not only for ourselves, but for society as a whole.